Hiya, welcome to Craftwork. My name's Ruthie and today I'm going to be talking Christmas. Now it feels ridiculously early. This will probably come out though mid-November, so it won't be as early for you guys, but for me putting all this up does seem a little bit mad. But don't worry, it's all going back in the box for another few weeks. I usually wait until the 1st of December, really. But I thought it would be useful to get in the mood for today's video, because today I wanted to talk to you about Christmas and about sewing and making for Christmas. Now I will have a few videos on ideas and suggestions and a few tutorials as well coming up, but for now we're just going to be talking about the basic tips to think about if you're going to be making presents for Christmas. So this also kind of feeds into sewing for other people in general, but particularly around Christmas time, I know a lot of makers and crafters feel the pressure to make things for their friends and family, or they just want to, and that's great. But to be honest, this video is kind of to remind myself as well, because now I'm starting to make these plans, I need to remember exactly why I'm doing this. So a little bit more on that later, but let's start with the tips. So my first tip is to start early, which is why this is coming out so early. As I say, it feels like it to me anyway. It's really important to think about it as early as possible, and really there isn't a too early to be thinking about Christmas for if you're making. Anyway, I know, I am one of those people. I do have a Pinterest board all year round that's private, that has ideas for people's presents. Tip number 2 is to keep it simple and be realistic. So you might not be able to make for everyone, and that's fine. If you can't think of something simple to make for them, don't. You're gonna have to buy something, I think. I just think it's better to not stress yourself out, not give yourself too much work, because that's the last thing that your loved ones want you to do for them. So be realistic about it. You might not be able to make absolutely every present, and if you are, then keep it simple and make simple silhouettes. That's always better anyway, because if you're trying to make someone clothes, for example, if you make them things that are supposed to be really fitted, then that's difficult to do if you're not going to be doing fittings and measurements, which you might want to do, that's fine, but not so great if you want your present to be a surprise. So keep it simple with the silhouettes as well, sort of like blocks and loose fitting clothes can be the best options. Number 3 is repeat. So what I mean by this is make lots of the same thing, like jumpers or ties or socks or whatever. Something that you can make for lots of different people means you can cut it all out at the same time, you can maybe sew it up at the same time, you can vary it with different fabrics and stuff, and trust me, they're still gonna love it. Number 4 is don't feel like you have to do handmade. One thing that I struggle with is the fact that I feel like in the past I've really gone all out and made them exactly what they want and spent hours on complicated patterns for them, and yeah, in beautiful silks or whatever, but this year I'm not going to have as much time and I'm not going to have as much money to spend on the fabric. So I'm going to be keeping it a lot more simple. Don't feel like you have to do handmade. Don't feel like you have to top what you did last year or even equal it. It's totally reasonable that one year you have enough time and money to make that special thing and the next year you don't. They're still grateful that you ever did, and they'll still be grateful for whatever you make or buy them. Number 5 is cost everything, from the thread to the notions to the fabric to the pattern. Cost everything and be realistic about it. You may need to, I usually have a little bit of leeway just in case I hadn't quite bought enough fabric or I hadn't quite bought enough thread. A lot of people think that handmade items are cheaper, but that's not necessarily the case. Fabric can be really expensive, materials can be really expensive, equipment can be very expensive. So if you have to buy, first of all, if you have to buy new equipment to make that thing, then think really carefully about it. I've made that mistake before. I've been like, I'm going to screen print everyone something this year. That's my theme this year, I'm screen printing. I did one and then realised it wasn't really very easy to do in my flat. So I decided to scrap that, and now that screen printing set is like just sat in a cupboard, and unfortunately I barely use it. So that wasn't really a very good investment, and I ended up making people clothes anyway. So be realistic and maybe have a little bit of a contingency and just be careful, I guess. And make sure you have a final budget. Number 6 is don't panic. Never panic make anything. If you on the 23rd you suddenly look at what you've made people and you think it's not enough, I need to make them this and this as well. It is enough. Even if it's the smallest thing, you've handmade it. So it's worth so much more than a bought present anyway, because it's worth your time and your creativity as well. So number 7, now this actually could be the main point of the whole video, and pretty much just sums up every single point. Enjoy it. If you're going to make people presents, then do it because you love making things, you love them, and you want to give them a handmade gift. Don't stress yourself out. Don't turn it into a chore. It's your hobby and you love it. Don't make it any other way. So yeah, just make sure you enjoy it. Make sure you do it calmly with lots of time. Maybe get yourself a glass of wine or a hot chocolate, put some Christmas music on, get into the mood, and just really enjoy the fact that you are spending that time for that person, and know that they're going to love whatever you make them. So there we are, those are my main 7 tips. There are a few more, but they kind of all feed into those 7. So for when you're thinking about making something for Christmas, try and keep at least some of those things in mind, and do as I say, not as I do, because I'm guilty of making all of those mistakes that I've mentioned every year, and I doubt this year will be any different. But I made this video in the hopes that I would kind of convince myself as well. We'll see what happens. So let me know in the comments below if you're making your Christmas presents this year, or if you've ever made them in the past, if you have any tips to add. And if you like this video, please subscribe. I've got loads more Christmas themed videos coming up, including tips and suggestions for handmade gifts, as well as tutorials and lots more. So that's it from me today, but I will see you again very soon. Bye!